When the world is in danger, to fight against pollution, Gaia selected 5 children around the world to be our champion, each of them getting a ring that has absolute control over a certain element: earth, wind, fire. Most of the times their individual powers weren't enough to stop the threat at hand, so they had to combine their powers to create a single entity known as Captain freaking Planet. He can use all the elements he wants to because he's Captain Planet. While he is active, he makes their rings pretty much unusable, but it doesn't matter because he can do anything their rings can do, but better because he's the Earth's greatest champion when it comes to different things. He can fly, super strength, stop major disasters around the world, and just do superhero-y type of things for kids, right?
Your powers combined, I am Captain Planet. These are powers magnified.
It's also worth noting he's their powers magnified, so whatever they can do, he can do better when it comes to the power rings they wield. His own real weakness is pollution. It weakens him, toxic waste and things of that such, or radiation. And even mental pollution, like this universe's version of Hitler, it pains him because of the hate. He has a wide array of ability, can control different elements like fire, wind, electricity, water, and etc.
See, he draws his power from nature, and with her in my body, everything is off.
Since he's the living embodiment of the earth, his power is directly related to it, so if the balance is out of whack, it kind of throws him off too.
What's wrong with me? He's falling apart all by himself.
He's physically strong enough to lift up entire boats this big with his super strength. He can literally fly, carry submarines. The average weight of a submarine could be up to 35 tons. This is actually on the smaller end. The larger end submarines can weigh up to 40,000 plus tons. This large dome ceiling, he's strong enough to lift up like this to really portray his strength, and he does this stuff casually. To get an idea of how big this ceiling is, it's big enough to cover up an oil rig to really show how gigantic it is. He's strong enough to carry what appears to be a whole bunch of large domes. Like, yo, he does it ridiculous speeds on top of it. These images have several frames. As you can see by the dome is gigantic, but it's not like the size of a continent or nothing. Like the way this angle portrays it to be like the size of like near the size of a continent. Like this is just probably just for viewing purposes, but yeah. But realistically, he carried 9 of these gigantic domes. There's even been calculations online that for him to be able to lift something this gigantic, he's strong enough to lift the largest ships on his back, a cruise ship weighing that could weigh over 200,000 of tons based on these feats of him lifting these different domes up. He did it with ease and flew at ridiculous speeds on top of it. But I'm going to get to his speed in a second. Keep in mind, this is nowhere near his limit because he's doing this stuff without struggling. Proof that he does it without struggling is how fast he's able to fly while doing something. When you're struggling, there's no way you could fly this fast, then lifting up something with similar weight and then lifting them all at the same time at that speed. With one arm, he carries this literal room away, like an actual room of a building with his raw strength, and yeah, just casual. He's strong enough to lift a large underwater base to show his strength. Yet again, lifts an entire nuclear power plant and flies with it. Entire power plant, he just throws it that far into the sun. Strong enough to lift this giant ship. Yeah, literally proving that he can lift ships. So yeah, he definitely can lift hundreds of thousands of tons. A skyscraper wall falls and he says, nah, I'm going to catch it before it hits these people so they won't get hurt, and flies off with it. Lifts literally a small hospital away so they won't get hit. Like lifts the entire thing. Breaks and lifts this tower and just carries it away. Yeah, fills it up with water. There's times he's not at full power. This UFO thing, he stops it, even though it's gigantic. He can tie a knot, like with stuff like that of a mech. Even when rocks are falling extremely hard, he can still catch it. Rocks that push him into the earth, and he just stands up with it because he's strong like that. He can use trees like baseball bats to just swing them like that, using a tree to hit something back into space with that much force, which takes a lot of force. Yeah, his punching power seems to add up to how much he can lift because he can punch hard, or even using his flight speed to fly through a large boulder, creates a large hole by flying through the ceiling of a sewer, consistently smashing through thick walls, even flying through a thick wall of ice. Flies through a metal floor. He can smash 2 boulders to dust. Damages this mech's leg by punching it. It tilts over just with, look how large this mech is. Large stuff like this, just punching it apart like that. A large amount of pollution, he can just punch it that far to the sun. Strikes trees in the air just by flying like that. He can headbutt stuff long distances away. One can make an argument that since he's literally the representation of Earth itself, he should automatically be planetary or multi-continental to some degree, or one could say having enough power to blast away a moon if he felt like it, right? Technically just by default from his narrative because he's Captain Planet, right? But he also has evidence of this, right, too. Remember that feat I showed you earlier of him lifting up an entire nuclear power plant? When each structure weighs up to 800 tons? He literally lifted up something at least 800 tons and literally threw it all the way to the sun. From Earth, something that big, he can literally lift up, and he has enough strength to just throw it and it go all the way to the freaking sun. Just think about it. If you can sling something that weighs over 800 tons and 92 million miles, you can obviously lift way more than the thing you threw weight. Or if you can fly with something that weighs over hundreds of thousands of tons at near light speeds, the fact that you can fly that fast let you know it's not a struggle lifting that weight, meaning that he probably could fly faster or lift more. So none of this stuff really shows his limit. I mean, think about it for a second. Bench pressing 145 pounds is one thing, but bench pressing 300 pounds and slinging it to space is totally different than just barely lifting it off the ground. That shows that you can lift way more. That's kind of Captain Planet's case. Striking power or blast power wise, he technically should be able to blast apart the moon at least, or even blast apart the Earth itself, and he is the living embodiment of the Earth, right? If he can move 100,000 tons at near light speeds, that means that's nowhere near his limit, being able to lift over 200 tons. One could even argue that he's hundreds of times, thousands of times stronger than 100,000 ton level lifting wise. One could say he can even lift mountains without even counting his velocity or kinetic energy buildup to further enhance his striking or punching power with his speed and etc., adding to the fact. Not to mention, we're just scratching the surface. I haven't even got on his earthly powers. This is raw strength at this point. His durability matches up with his strength, like stuff like bullets ain't gonna cut it against him. Like it just bounces off of him. When spears hit him, he laughed at it and they all bounced off of him. Helicopter blades that are mid-flight, he can just stop them on the spot. Gigantic explosions he's right in the middle of. Like, yeah, falls that hard. And he just flies out like nothing. Even missile explosions, even though he's right next to it. Streams of fire hitting him. He's standing there like, what are you doing? When it comes to speed, he has superhuman reaction, like catching this mid-flight. Implied he's fast enough to move himself in the path of bullets. He's fast enough to create his own tornado using super speed by spinning like that, underwater of course, deflecting other missiles. Dodges 2 waves of bazooka fire. He turned into a middle of cloud in the middle of combat. A way of going tangible in the middle of combat, also showing his speed. You can tell the right intent of his speed on how he moves like a blur here. Seems to be able to fly around the earth with incredible speeds like I showed part of this earlier, but it's just a good example of his raw speed. Flies through a river enough to create waves like that. Yeah, look how fast he can fly to this little storm cloud thing to show his speed. One could say this is a strength feat, but he drilled through the earth, ended up on the other side by flying all the way through it. Plenty of occasions of being able to fly faster than the eye can see. Or a goofy looking cartoon. You can see the after images here showing his speed. Spins this giant monster and the giant test tube with speed. This has actually been calculated by other calculators online that he did this at 80% the speed of light. And he did this while carrying something that weighs as close to freaking large ships. So he could likely probably go to speed of light. If he can fly this fast with this much weight in his hand, how much can he fly without that weight in his hands? You know what I'm saying? Part of his speed is impressive because he can literally turn into actual light, even though he doesn't spam this as much as he should. Kind of can do some light type movements or teleportation, but he's done it a couple times to zip across large distances, like as light. It seems because of his speed. If we were to take this seriously, that would confirm he has light speed movement, which means he can move over 670 million miles per hour when it comes to raw speed. And the thing he specializes in is earth powers, like diamonds he can seem like he can cover himself with, like control the earth so much to cause these statues to collapse. Seems to be able to make small localized earthquakes, like stuff shaking thanks to his ability. Makes a large fissure, crack in the ground or the earth, like him being able to control the earth. Causes a dam to break apart just by doing that because he controls earth. In this occasion, he appears to literally turn into stone to fly through stone to really show his strength off even more. He can breathe fire, blast the fire out of his mouth that way, or just literally turn into an actual fireball itself. In this occasion, he burns up a large amount of water by turning into actual fire, it seems. Just literally evaporating the river just because of his heat. Thanks to all these elements he can produce, it's logical to say that he has blast power to be able to deflect sunlight back through the force field like that in this occasion. Sometimes when he takes off, he creates a burst of fire. And the reason he can fly is because of his ability to control the wind. He can literally blow out a large amount of fire with just the pressure of his wind power. He can use his wind ability to lift an entire building with a tornado. Lifts and safely transport a herd of elephants. This is at least 5 elephants, and the average weight of any elephant can weigh different amounts, but each weighing at least 3 tons. Blow and freeze a large amount of polluted liquid, like that. Can seem to turn his body into literal just straight up water. This could come in handy in combat if you try to hit him. He's just literally liquidy. Like if you try to trap him like this, he can be like, nope, you ain't trapping me. Creates a ramp of solid water to where you can just ride on it like a ramp. turns into liquid nitrogen that freezes a lot of pipes. Just literally appears to just be able to create ice. Thanks to the power of the heart, one of the powers of the elements, I guess. He can telepathically communicate, telepathically calms down a herd of buffalo, calm down buffalo, summons dolphins to help because of his telepathic ability, and make you blasted snakes go away, darn it. He can turn into a literal bolt of lightning and produce electricity. His blast power in electricity seems to be pretty good. Blasts apart a larger part of a stone wall like that with his blast. Gets rid of a storm by using electricity. He can literally turn into metal. Also strong enough to do that. Yeah, he turns this thing into a large water purifier, reshaping it into something that's beneficial. Metal manipulation, he even creates a recycling bin, like literal gun transmutation type stuff. Let's use him as a shield instead. If your robot don't even fight him, he can just turn you into a cage. Like, bruh. With his eyes, you see that? Seem to have the ability to make the nanobots rusty. Like, bruh, what? Turns into a buzzsaw, makes his arm literal metal, magnetically make the gun say, come over here, and when he turns into a magnet, turns stuff into a literal vacuum cleaner so it can stop the air pollution. Kid shows, right? Captain Planet seems to be able to use all his abilities combined at once to where it's like a rainbow-ish beam. Like, yeah. Are we just going to ignore he can literally turn into an actual tornado? Like, bro, this is silly. To suck in water. Turns into actual electricity to strike like that with that much force impact to show his blast power. Since he is Captain Planet, he turned into a large amount of vines to wrap up a monster. Well, I guess plants do exist on Captain Planet, technically. Can you imagine actually turning into vines itself to wrap up a villain? Like, which vine do you beat up? Turned his legs into tree trunks this one time? Yeah. Can literally do plant-like stuff. Call him Swamp Thing or Poison Ivy. I actually think Poison Ivy from DC Comics probably would like Captain Planet. Ha! If he wants to, he can just shoot straight up beams of energy. Can even turn into numerous bolts of energy like such. Some form of transmutation, turning his mud into a pair of sunglasses with his earth manipulation. Apparently, Captain Planet can't go to space, though, because he's the literal representation of the Earth. Not necessarily any planet with earthly-like elements, just Earth itself, I guess. So that could be a serious weakness. If you don't fight him on Earth, then he technically can't beat you off Earth. When it comes to just fighting him with brute force, you have to pollute him to some degree to even weaken him or hurt him, one could say, whether it be hatred or you just literally just disgusting type stuff. Just beating him with raw punching power might not work. But that could be just me, guys. What do you guys think? How strong do you think Captain Planet is? I would think he should technically be able to bust the planet. He's Captain Planet. Hasn't really shown no limits other than goofy ones like pollution and goofy hatred type pollution, stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? That could be just me. It's a kid show. They're not going to explore his power levels that deeply. You know what I'm saying?